The Shepherd and His Flock. Once, long ago, when the hills were green and the streams ran clear, there lived a shepherd who owned a flock of sheep. His life was a simple one, filled with long days beneath the open sky. Each morning, as the sun rose over the hills, he led his flock out to pasture. Each evening, as the shadows stretched long and the crickets began their chorus, he brought them safely back to the fold. He wasn't rich. He had no gold, no jewels, and no great mansion in the village. But he had his flock, and to him that flock was everything. They provided wool for clothes, milk for cheese, and lambs that could be sold at the market. The flock was his pride, his treasure, his very heartbeat. The sheep, for their part, knew their shepherd well. They knew the sound of his whistle, the rhythm of his staff tapping on stones, and the gentle murmur of his voice as he counted them each evening. To the flock, he was safety and guidance. Wherever he went, they followed. But the shepherd was not always as wise as he was kind. One evening, as the sun sank into the horizon and painted the hills in gold and purple, the shepherd sat outside the fold, gazing at his sheep. They were calm, munching their supper of grass, their woolly bodies like clouds drifting over the earth. But the shepherd's mind was restless. He thought of the days he had spent tending them, days when wolves prowled the edges of the forest, when storms threatened to scatter them, when thieves might slip into the night and steal them away. He thought of the labor it took to guard them, and slowly, a dangerous idea crept into his head. "Why should I labor so much to keep them all alive?" he muttered to himself. "When the wool and the meat are worth so much, why wait? Why not take for myself now, instead of waiting for the slow profit of the seasons?" His eyes narrowed as greed whispered in his ear. The sheep, unaware of his thoughts, bleated softly in the fold, innocent and trusting. The shepherd stood. He took up his knife. One by one, he began to slaughter his own flock. The sheep cried in confusion and fear, their trust betrayed. The fold, once a place of safety, became a place of horror. When morning came, the meadow was empty. Where once a flock grazed and filled the air with their gentle sounds, there was silence. Only the shepherd remained, surrounded by the lifeless forms of those who had trusted him most. First he was pleased. "Now I have what I want," he said. "Meat, skins, and wealth beyond what I would have gained waiting year after year." But as the hours passed, a strange stillness grew around him. The meadow felt hollow. The hills echoed with a kind of loneliness he had never known. No woolly backs dotted the grass. No cheerful bleats filled the air. The shepherd, once a man with purpose, now stood with nothing but loss around him. That very night, as he sat alone by the fire, he realized the truth. In his greed, he had destroyed not just his flock, but also his future. The sheep had been his livelihood, his companions, his security. By betraying them, he had betrayed himself. The fields grew over with weeds, and the fold fell silent forever. Where once there had been abundance, there was only emptiness. The villagers shook their heads when they heard of his folly. "A shepherd without sheep," they said, "is no shepherd at all." And so, the man who had been trusted by his flock became a warning to others, a story told to children and farmers alike, reminding them of the danger of greed and short-sightedness. Moral of the story: greed can destroy the very foundation of your life. When you betray what trusts you, you end up with nothing.